Oh yeah, my wife and I go to the national conventions for the JCs. They have 2 of them a year. They have one in the fall and one in the spring. And the one in the spring is their awards one.
Oh,
So, yeah, when we can go and compete against Illinois and Hawaii and California and all those other big states that JC presence, to be able to compete with them and bring back awards is very awesome.
so what do you do? I mean, do you have any influence on the Chamber of Commerce here?
No, because they have their own young professionals group.
It's not even connected.
It's Junior Chamber International. It is. It's a worldwide organization at every local level, state level, and national level.
Interesting. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to recuse myself from the Berwick property. Got a conflict there.
Okay. Which number
The
is
alley
that?
vacation.
Which number is that?
Oh, the alley one.
Yeah, I don't know which number it is. It's vacating the alley.
Second.
Remind me when we get to
Okay,
it.
Second and third, I think. So it is.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the North Platte City Council here on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. Of course, it's 5:30 p.m. Calling the meeting officially to order. We have an occasion by Kent Hansen from Calling God's Remnant. Kent, would you approach the mic and we will listen to you.
Thank you, sir. Heavenly Father, we just love you and we praise you and we give you glory. Lord, we just pray for your Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to come and to move through this room, to be with every conversation made, every decision made, Lord. May it be towards your glory to expand and brighten this city up, to help it to reach the potential that you have for it. I thank you for the men and women, the men of this council that are dedicating their time to your work and to the work for this city. Bless us. In holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Thank you, everyone. Angie, roll call, please.
Here.
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 Thank you. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of the State of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. Meeting procedure, excuse me, when the mayor can talk, the public may address specific agenda items at the pleasure of the mayor. If recognized by the mayor, please identify yourself by stating your name and address. Please address the council through the mayor and limit your remarks. We respect our city employees and request that any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired in a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Consent agenda. All matters under the consent agenda are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any city council member may, however, remove an item from consent by request. Number 1A, approve the minutes of April 1, 2025. B, send the application of Fresh Food Central, Inc., DBA Fresh Foods, for a Class C liquor license, beer, wine, distilled spirits on and off sale at 1620 East 4th Street, Suite 110 at the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. C, send the application of Flat Rock Properties 2 LLC DBA Highball Liquor for a Class C liquor license, beer, wine, distilled spirits on and off sale at 1108 Rodeo Road, Suite 1 to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. Send the application of Luigi's Italian Restaurant for a Class 1 liquor license, beer, wine, distilled spirits on sale only at 502 South Jeffers Street to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission with no recommendation. E, adopt the 2024 Fire Department Annual Report. Item F, approve application by TBS Liquors, NP LLC, DBA The Bottle Shop for a special designated license on May 2nd? Okay, sorry, there's a hole in my page here. 2025 from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Jerry Remus Chevrolet at 3801 South Jeffers for a customer appreciation event.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Nisley. Calling the question on the consent agenda, please. Consent agenda is approved. Hope you all had a chance to peruse the annual fireman report. It's very nicely done. Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate all your efforts. Regular agenda. You'll note that tonight, items 2, 3, and 4 on our agenda would require the council to sit as the Board of Equalization, and which means in this procedure, we would normally adjourn this meeting and then reconvene as the Board of Equalization. For the sake of simplicity, we're just going to move items 2, 3, and 4 down to the end of the agenda. We'll just proceed through the normal council meeting, and then we'll come back and do items 2, 3, and 4 at the end of the agenda. Okay? Any objections? Okay. Thank you. So that means that we'll be moving into item number 5 on the agenda, and that is a public hearing for project implementation status on 2024 Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds to assist the city of North Platte with infrastructure improvements located on West 15th Street from North Hayes Avenue to North Custer Avenue, continuing onto North Custer Avenue from West 15th Street to West 16th Street. No action taken. This is a public hearing, so I'm opening the public hearing. Kevin, would you, at the beginning of this hearing, please describe kind of what's going on here for us?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The public hearing that is tonight is a requirement for the grant funds that we received. We received approximately $440,200. The next item on the agenda is the bids. The project went out for bid. I'll let Brent kind of go into that portion, but summary is the bids came back lower than anticipated. So a request was put into DED to make a minor change, which is allowed. So the project now, since your application, your information, your packet has been received, we have received approval to extend the project to 17th Street. We couldn't have just picked up this project and moved it to another end of the community. So the project description has changed. So now instead of ending at 16th Street, it will now extend to 17th Street.
That will make all of Hayes paved. Is that correct?
Custer.
Or Custer,
Custer.
excuse me, wrong street. So, okay.
But the main reason for the hearing tonight is just to give the public an opportunity, if anybody wanted to object before you guys proceeded with allowing the construction to happen this construction season.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Any other members of the public would like to comment on this project? Please approach the microphone and do so.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing, by Garrick, second by Voles. Calling the question and closing the public hearing, please. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. Council will now consider project implementation status on 2024 Community Development Block Grant CDBG funds to assist. Wait a minute, we don't have any action here, do we? So we don't need to do this. Sorry. Moving on to number 6. Approve the bid and authorize mayor to sign contract with Level LLC of North Platte for Street Improvement District number 364, West 15th Street from Custer Avenue to Hayes Avenue and North Custer Avenue from 15th Street to 16th Street in the amount of $402,228.
I move to approve the bid and authorize the mayor to sign the contract with Level LLC of North Platte for Street Improvement District number 364, West 15th Street from Custer Avenue to Hayes Avenue and North Custer Avenue from 15th Street to 16th Street in the amount of $402,228.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by McNew. Any discussion? Mr. Reeker.
Mr. Mayor, are the parameters changed in this description then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Lucas?
are you needing an amended motion to go to 17th Street, or will that come back as a separate cost item?
Oh, yeah. Well,
How do you guys want to handle that?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Brent Berkland, City Engineer. My recommendation is it would be cleaner if we just amended it to go from 16th to 17th tonight, because then everybody would be on the same page moving forward.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we change the description from 16th Street to 17th Street.
Second.
My understanding that Brent, based on quantities, that bid amount will change based on the quantities for that extra piece, correct?
Correct. And it should still be less than the budgeted amount that we had for the grant in the city match.
So since an amount is defined, perhaps we should limit the amount by the maximum of the grant as well in your motion.
Yeah, if I could restate that from changing 16th Street to 17th Street, and then altering the amount to be up to the maximum of the grant amount.
Second.
Okay. And that grant, the maximum grant amount is 500,000, is that correct?
70% of the project would be the grant funds up to 440,000. 230% would be the city. The original project when we put this application together was 586,000, with 30,000 for administrative costs that were allowable administrative costs. So the total project for 616,000.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Lucas, seconded by Nisley to amend, to add 17th Street to the completion destination of the project and increase the maximum spend to the maximum allowable by the grant. Is that correct, Mr. Lucas?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any further discussion on this amendment? Calling the question on the amendment, please. Amendment is passed. Thank you. We're back to original consideration of item number 6. Do we have any further discussion on item number 6 amended? Ed?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, does this include streets and sidewalks, Brent?
Correct.
Okay, and there will be no cost to the property owners, is that correct?
It's a CDBG grant, so we cannot assess property.
I just want to
For the
make
cost.
that a clarification
correct.
for people that are listening or have property over there.
Yep.
Thank
You're
you.
correct. Yep.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 6 as amended, please. Item number 6 as amended is passed. Thank you, everyone. Item number 7, another public hearing. And this would be to consider first reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4207, vacating an alley located in the 200 block between East 2nd Street and East 3rd Street and retaining the alley as an access and utility easement. Laying the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 4207, an ordinance of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, vacating an alley described as lots 1 through 8, block 165, original town, North Platte, Lincoln County, providing for the vesting of title of said vacated alley, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Thank you. Okay, public hearing is open. If anyone has an opinion on this matter, please approach the microphone and tell us who you are, where you live, and give us your thoughts.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by McNew to close the public hearing. Calling the question on closing the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I would recuse myself from the vote because of a conflict.
Okay. The record show Mr. Reeker has recused himself from the vote on this item. Rod, we need you to vote, and Pete.
Oh. Sorry.
Vote whichever way you want, but we need you to vote. Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Now the council will consider first reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4207, vacating an alley located in the 200 block between East 2nd Street and East 3rd Street and retaining the alley as an access and utility easement.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4207, vacating the alley as described in the ordinance on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Flanders. Okay, discussion on this item. Mr. Garrick.
Just a there is a typo. It's actually the 400 block it's not the 200 block. The ordinance doesn't state it in there and the motion doesn't, so I don't think we need to change anything, but just
Okay.
as a point of order.
So it's actually the 400 block, so we'll make sure that's correct on the next reading. So, Mr. Eaker,
Will recuse myself again, conflict.
the record show Mr. Eaker has recused himself from item number 7. Other comments or questions on item number 7? Mr. Lucas.
I realize we have a redevelopment plan pending here. Does this create any challenges laying on trash service to the area, or everything be smooth as drawn?
It should be good the way it's laid out.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments on item number 7? Mr. McNew.
So just out of curiosity, how does that work when you vacate an alley and there's public services there? So if are they underground, I'm assuming? So if they pave over that and the city has to come back to replace stuff, whose cost is that to repair said concrete?
We would handle that much like we do in other places where there'd be kind of some shared costs if it's. Judy, I don't know if you want to go into more detail, but they still have the easement to have the utilities under there. But as far as if they paved over it, they do the paving cost, so it's kind of at their cost to replace.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we're going to retain that as an access and utility easement because there is a large number of very large utility items that will be under there. And typically, if we have to go in there and fix it, I mean, like Lane said, we do try to share the cost a little bit, but typically that's going to be their cost to replace that pavement because they're the ones that paved over it.
Okay.
So that's going to be their cost.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Item number 7. Seeing none, calling the question on item number 7, please. Item number 7 is passed. Item number 8, approve the bid and authorize mayor to negotiate and sign contract documents with Level LLC of North Platte for Cody Park sidewalk and parking in the amount of $124,864.75.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the bid and authorize the mayor to negotiate and sign contract documents with Level LLC of North Platte for Cody Park sidewalk and parking in the amount of $124,864.75.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Dye. Discussion on this item. Brent, you want to tell us what we're doing here real quick? Excuse me. We know what we're doing. Tell everyone else.
Explain the
Think
project.
about how I say that a little bit.
Good evening again. This project entails doing some paving around the pickleball tennis court areas. We have some sidewalks on the west side of the pickleball, north side, the approach sidewalks to the middle, and then also connecting the tennis courts together. Additionally, probably the biggest, 2/3 of the cost we're looking at is paving new parking in front of the tennis pickleball area. And specifically, we're going to have 2 handicap spots delineated, signed, marked for the facility, which right now we don't have any handicap parking that meets code over in that area. So we will have that as part of this as well. So that's what we're looking at. It's for the the pickleball tennis, but the softball's probably going to get some advantage of using it, and others, the swimming pool, once that gets up and going, it's a little bit of the holistic parking for the whole park, frisbee golf, etc.
And the parking, my memory serves me correctly, is along the south side of the new pickleball tennis courts. Is that correct?
It's on the north side of the street, south of the pickleball area. So there's some gravel parking there right now. That's going to be expanded with concrete. And it's going to be perpendicular to the roadway to try to maximize as much parking as we can get. Right now it's parallel. You can pull off, parallel park. So we're going to make it perpendicular. You pull in to try to get more parking close to the facility.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Brent before he sits down? Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, I don't know which of you this is a question for, but the source of funding for this particular contract, in terms of where that's coming from, like,
This was figured into kind of the
To the
overall
overall,
project, and so that's where we're using the Keno funds, and then
partial Keno funds and partial what the tennis and pickleball raised for it, or for the total project.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on item number 8? Thank you, Brent. Seeing none, calling the question on item number 8, please. Item number 8 is passed. Item number 9. First reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4204, creating paving district number 839 on Francis Street from the intersection of Tabor Avenue thence east to Bryan Avenue, and at the intersection of Bryan Avenue and Francis Avenue heading north approximately 165 feet to existing concrete. Lane, the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 4204. An ordinance for the creation of paving district number 839 on Francis Street from the intersection of Tabor Avenue, thence east to Bryan Avenue, and at the intersection of Bryan Avenue and Francis Avenue heading north approximately 165 feet to existing concrete in the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and ordering the construction of street improvement therein.
Thank you.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4204 to create paving extension district number 839 as presented in council materials on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Bowles. Discussion. Council, you have this setting near you. Lane, you're the artist here. You want to go through this, please?
It's a little hard to tell, but item number 9 is in green, which is on the far left side of your sheet, kind of showing that in green what this ordinance addresses. And then going forward, item 10 is the orange in the middle of the sheet, and item 11 is the kind of pink color towards the right-hand side of the sheet, and shows estimated costs for all those as well. That's what each of these 3 ordinances on items 9, 10, and 11 address.
Okay. Brent, would you give us a little description of the way and purpose of this little chunk of paving, please?
What you have in front of you, this particular district is basically going from the concrete at Tabor area, going east to Bryan, and then north to connect up to Lutheran Family Services, that concrete on South Bryan. So it's an L-shaped piece is what we're looking at with this.
Okay. And the main reason we're paving this street?
This was petitioned by the connection, their project that they're looking at over in that area. And this is going to be a 42-foot wide street segment that's going to match from here going all the way to Newberry. So it's going to be 2 lanes with a center turn. So this part right here is going to start the new road section all the way to Newberry.
Okay. Questions for Brent?
Sound like a broken record here, but I'm trying to remember from the redevelopment plan. Is this a section the city's paying of this that's not going to be assessed? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The redevelopment starts on the east side of Bryan.
Right.
From where we're going east.
This is kind of the city connecting to the redevelopment area then, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 9, please. Item number 9 is passed. Thank you, Brent. You're probably going to be a busy guy tonight, so.
Same thing.
Okay. Item number 10. First reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4205, creating paving district number 840 on proposed Francis Street from Devco Avenue to Bicentennial Avenue. Lane?
Ordinance number 4205. An ordinance for the creation of paving district number 840 on proposed Francis Street from Devco Avenue to Bicentennial Avenue in the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and ordering the construction of street improvement therein.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4205 to create paving extension district number 840 as presented in council materials on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Flanders, second by Reeker. Discussion on item number 10. Brent, you might as well explain what this piece is. So, and we have this map here to reference.
So the piece that Lane described, the middle section, that's going from Devco to Bicentennial. And that's about a quarter mile, about 2,600 feet roughly is about that length that we're looking at. And this piece would be a segment to connect going further east. It's a kind of the gap piece. If you remember from the redevelopment plan, this would be phase 2 or 3, I believe, 2, that they were looking at. And this ties into the next paving district that we're looking at. This one would be, the way that's set up would be assessed to the developer of that property, as they were responsible with the redevelopment agreement to do this segment. This would be then assessed to that developer for this particular section.
So when you say assessed to the developer, what you mean is the folks on the north side of the street won't have to pay for the street.
Right. It'd be assessed to the person responsible in the redevelopment agreement, which is the property to the south.
Okay. Questions? Brad?
So on the east side of this, remind me, what's the street that runs? Well, it's not a street now, is it? But what would it be if we connected it all the way to the north right there?
And that's
Devco.
Bicentennial, I believe.
On the east side. Oh, on the west side, excuse me.
That is Devco.
Devco. Are we ever going to connect that?
No,
Okay, so there's no stop signs or any,
correct.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
that's correct. It stops at, I believe there's a steel building on the west side, and then it's a right of way that the door company uses as a back entrance, and I think a little bit the post office does, but no one has a desire for a street behind there.
okay, thank you.
And definitely no one wants to pay for it. That's probably the bigger thing.
Other questions or comments on item number 10? Mr. McNew?
Thank you. Is there a formula or anything? How does that increase the assessment? Is there a certain percentage that goes along with that cost over assessment, or how does that work, I guess?
As far as assignment of the costs when we're all done?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. How do you assess that after it's paved? I mean, it's never going to fully recover the cost, but how do you assess that to the property value?
Oh, it does recover the cost.
It does
Go
recover
ahead.
the cost?
Yeah.
It gets assigned as a benefit to the adjacent property, and that benefit is the cost. We just take all the costs, put it together, and then assign it on a per foot basis. So in this case, it'll all go to the south side.
Okay.
So they'll get 100% of the cost
Good to know.
on that.
And one way to think of it is it's similar to like a real estate tax, but it's more of like a special assessment. So what can happen is if the developer sells and moves along, is that assessment can then follow the land and the new owner can take care of it, or they figure out how to get it paid off before it. I mean that there's lots of different things through development practices where you get that figured out, but it's like a special assessment which can attach to the land and go along with the land.
The benefit is assigned to the property, I think is.
Yes. Yep.
And
Same thing.
And so it doesn't matter who owns it, it's the property that receives the benefit, and so whoever owns it then pays for that benefit.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Lucas.
Just a few clarifying questions. I think I understand this, but I want to make sure. So this is in the TIF zone, so the developer would still have the rights to the TIF revenue, which they could in essence use towards the rest of their development or the assessments costs, right?
All eligible costs would
Yeah.
be my,
Towards eligible costs. Okay.
yeah, and what we've heard generally is, water sewer paving, there would be an eligible cost, and so if we provided them a cost for paving, they could use the TIF funds
Okay.
to pay for that.
But their cost becomes the assessment costs? Because the
Correct.
city's financing the install? Okay.
Yes.
So the assessment payments potentially become eligible TIF
Yes.
cost? Okay, in that. And I'm sure they're gonna have other eligible costs. 'Cause they're gonna be excavating and doing a lot of other things there. Now, as they subdevelop that area, can they subset their assessment district too then? So in other words, let's say they ended up with 50 residential lots tied to that backbone can they then spread that assessment among a replat? Is that how that
We've
works?
done that in the past on large parcels, that if they get subdivided, there is a process that usually we interact with the assessor on identifying. That's why it's a good thing about doing it on a linear foot basis, that if it's, let's say, $100 for a foot, if they carve off a 50-foot lot, it's 50 times 100. It makes it simpler math to calculate if they divide it up.
Okay. If that occurs with a replat, does the city make that decision, or does the developer, or is it a collaboration? Do you know? I know that's a lot of what ifs, but
Like on the cost, you mean?
yeah, let's say that gets replatted into a large, residential street or cul-de-sacs to the south of that.
Right now, the way that it's done, the assessor, the county, does the collection of the special assessments. And so they've gone through, and we'll usually collaborate with them, that if it's one lot, how big is it? How does that work? And if they want to pay it off all at once or continue to pay on just their segment. Because they're the ones collecting on behalf of the city. And that's what we typically has been done, is collaborate with the county.
Okay. So I guess the bottom line, just to clarify, the bottom line is that we're basically going to use a financing mechanism for that section of road. They're going to be responsible for it. We're going to figure out how it gets assessed, and then they'll have the TIF revenue coming in from the area, right? Okay. That makes sense. And so the risk to the city becomes if that would not develop in the ground, would become less valuable than the assessments. That's really our risk.
Correct.
But where it's backbone infrastructure, would hope that not be very probable. So, okay, I think I understand. Thank you.
Ed?
Mr. Mayor, Brent, so I presume we're gonna have storm sewers on here. Where's that gonna drain?
The storm sewer is actually basically in that corridor right now.
Oh, it
There's
is.
one that runs east, there's a 48-inch that runs east and west, just south of the post office would be the
Okay.
best way I'd describe it. It's on the north side of that property. There's one in there right now, and it goes to Bicentennial and then to the river.
Okay,
So
all right.
there's one in that segment right there.
So it's just a simple connection then.
The not simple connection. It's a simple idea, yes.
Understood.
Other questions or comments on number 10?
And how
Brad?
wide is that street?
This is gonna be 42. So from where we're starting with the first paving district at Tabor, it's gonna be 42 all the way to Newberry,
Thank you.
including the segment.
Brad?
So I should have asked this on the last agenda item, but Francis really narrows right there on the west end where it dead ends, where we're connecting on the green spot. Is there any thought to widening that out, or how are you going to handle that?
It narrows to 37 feet, and we're picking at that intersection. So for right now, for phasing, we can get it to that intersection, and we'll just have it be 2 lanes right when we get to that intersection. So we'll get rid of the center turn lane as we get there. So it'll be 2 wide lanes. But Lane and I have talked about from there all the way to Jeffers at least. We talked about that corridor, if we widen it 5 more feet. We've talked about different things, doing one side, both sides. We haven't gone through all of the evaluation on it. But right now, if we pull off the curb and gutter on both sides, there's 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet. If we made it 2.5 feet wider all the way to Jeffers, we'd have a 3-lane all the way from Jeffers to Newberry. So that was one thing we talked about doing, is making that a 3-lane facility, Newberry to Jeffers, from State Link to State Highway.
And doing that, I mean, I assume that would incur quite a bit of cost to increase that out. What kind of time frame are you thinking about doing? Are you getting this set up and then seeing how the traffic flows, and then just kind of seeing
Some
how
of it
things
depends
go?
on the development, how the development proceeds, getting this all the way connected all the way through. Some of that is that timing, and how does the development proceed as far as how fast does it fill up, and traffic patterns will change too. I mean,
Sure.
people are used to going a certain direction, and how will it be utilized by the public a little bit as well. So some of it'll be reaction, and some of it will be how the things develop. So, but I would guess, to your point of the question, I would probably put it in the 5 to 10 year horizon if things move along, so.
Gotcha.
Other questions or comments on number 10? Seeing none, calling the question on number 10, please. Number 10 is passed. Number 11, first reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4206, creating paving district number 481 on proposed Francis Street from Bicentennial Avenue to Newberry access. Lane, the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 4206, an ordinance for the creation of paving district number 841 on proposed Francis Street from Bicentennial Avenue to Newberry access in the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, and ordering the construction of street improvement therein.
Move to adopt ordinance number 4206 to create paving extension district number 841 as presented in council materials on first reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. Brent, you might as well describe this one before you try to
I
sit
thought I'd
down.
just stay
So,
here.
please mention how this section is going to be paid for in your description. So,
This section is going from Bicentennial, as we talked about, to be the east side of the current industrial area. And as you can see, there's a couple gentle curves in it, and it's going to end up at the intersection of Golden and Newberry. And again, we're looking at a 42-foot, that'd be the 3-lane section. And this is being substantially paved by a grant that Kevin had written for that targeted, it was a very narrow grant that this particular section happened to check all the boxes. That it was pretty unusual, the requirements that this particular thing hit. And the grant is 75-25. And the redevelopment agreement for the previous paving district applies to this segment as well. That the developer was supposed to pay for the cost from Bicentennial to Newberry. And we had a grant will help speed the whole process along. But the grant funds will pay for 75% of this segment. So this was phase 3, 4, 5. I think we pushed them to go to 3, but it was further down the road. With the grant, this is allowing us to get this done a lot sooner. And it completely changes the whole view of the community on this Francis corridor. Instead of over more time, it's going to be happening in a lot shorter duration.
okay, thank you. Ed?
Mayor, thank you. So with the grant, does that lessen the developer's cost?
The way that the grant is set up, it's the 75-25, and I guess it was a little bit, I'd probably defer to the mayor on some of our discussions on that.
Yeah, we're working with the developers to cover the 25%. But in answer to your question, yes, it does.
Sounds like it would.
Yeah. Which is why we're quite comfortable that they'll be able to cover the 25%.
The art of the deal.
Something like that, yes. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Lucas.
So with that, obviously this would speed up that install significantly because they were several years down the road before that was going to be planned. Would it clumsy things up if I was to consider a motion that required an amendment of the redevelopment agreement on this for the extra 25%? Or do you guys just need some time to work through that, or how do you feel about that kind of clarifying amendment on this?
This is going to require that development agreement to be amended, so my intent was to handle it when we do that. I mean, you can make whatever motion you want, but my intent is that it's in that revised document, so.
Okay. I think I'll just sit back. You guys can do your thing on that. I think we're all on the same page. So.
Other questions or comments? Brad? Oh, go ahead.
So not only is the 25%, added to the redevelopment, but we're also saving them, significant money on the back end also. So think about what concessions we'd like to see, what we'd like to get out of that also, because, and that's significant money in today's dollars. 5 years from now, that increases quite a bit. On the east side there, are you thinking about putting a light on Newberry, or what are you thinking with the traffic flow on that end?
This will dovetail in with the 4-lane work that the state, they're doing the design right now on the 2 additional lanes on Newberry. So that's going to be, ultimately it's the state's decision on how they want to do that. We'll coordinate with them on that, but there's probably a pretty strong likelihood something is going to have to be there. The state will work with us on what that's going to be, but so we're in the preliminary discussions right now with them on this. Timing has changed from our redevelopment agreement, which is going to be a few years, to now it's in the probably 18-month range. So
There's significant traffic jam could be sitting right there, so something needs to be done, maybe not initially, but.
yes, correct. You're right.
And one of the reasons that we've gotten kind of creative, actually the main reason, not one of the reasons, that we've gotten kind of creative about how to get this street put in is, as we all know, the street will never be less expensive than it is this year or early next year. It will always be more expensive. And so getting it all done from end to end in the shortest period of time possible decreases the overall cost, allows us to do the maximum amount of paving at the most favorable cost. So that's the main reason we're being kind of creative in how we do some of these things, because we could have sat back and just let it happen over time, but then we would have had chunks of Francis Street that were gravel or something like that. And I mean, that's just not good. This is going to be a great driver for that neighborhood. We're going to how wide are the sidewalks going to be, Brent?
We're doing 10 foot on the north, and that's going all the way from, that's part of the redevelopment requirement. It's going to go all along this Francis segment. So we're going to have that go from the Bryan all the way over to Newberry. We're going to have a parallel sidewalk along this way.
Right. So if you're a person that lives in this development that's being built as literally as we speak, it'll be relatively easy for you to ride your bicycle, and maybe you work at Sustainable Beef or some other industry that comes in down there. You're going to be able to walk or ride your bicycle down there pretty easily if that's how you choose to get there. Maybe not in January, but for a good chunk of the rest of the year, it'll be a way to get there. Ed?
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think there's kind of a slough that runs through there. What's the plans for taking care of that?
That's where we're going to put the street.
Oh, so it's going to be an underwater street.
To pick up speed on one end. And Brent, you want to talk about how we're going to handle that?
Yeah, we'd looked at filling some of that in. We'll try to, and the one thing we have is a cushion, to the mayor's point. There's some of that would be a natural place to put the bike trail, that it might not be the most developable for a business or the road, but we have a little bit of latitude with the placement of the road and the bike trail that it might make it a little more scenic. It'll stay down a little bit lower, but no, that slough in general right now, or that low spot, that was kind of a historical drainage over the long term, and it's kind of been cut off. If you look at Newberry, it's been cut off, and it's more of just a low spot that really doesn't drain much right now. So we talked about having like a parallel drainage ditch along there to get water down to the river as part of this as well. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And big picture, if you're looking at all the segments along through here, going from Bryan to, well, the paving district that was the first one we did, all the way to where we're tying in, all the way to Newberry, we're in about 8,500 feet. So just to kind of give you a perspective, that's a little over 1.5 miles. And I don't know of a time in the community recently, definitely not in probably the last few decades, that we've had that length of a substantial collector arterial street in North Platte. That's a lot of development potential. It's exciting for the community, so.
Mr. Lucas.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. I kind of skipped over that earlier, thinking about who's paying for what, but as I think about this project, I think about like the project done on Lakeview. I think about Buffalo. Think about when we went out on West A, went out on West Phillip, and those became the building blocks for something like this. I applaud you guys, the work you did on the grant, and the developers helped with that too. I mean, we still don't know, you know, until they're building houses and selling them, we have no idea if people are going to buy houses in this area or not. I mean, it's still a risk sitting on the developer. But I think by getting this all done in one shot, and which wouldn't have been possible, I don't think, without that grant award, I think you've raised the probability of this subdivision moving faster significantly. I think this is a great game changer. It'll probably speed things up 2 to 3 years out there, in my opinion. So, well done. Do you think this will cost us other potential grant funds? In other words, are we going to be on the no grant list for a while? Or
This one was a very specific one that came through a different avenue. It was state funding. So the good thing is, from a separate grant, a lot of times if you're going through the federal particular program, if you already have one, then they make you wait. This is a different state one, so I think that would help for looking at other grants, so.
Clearly, Kevin has some special grant mojo, so,
we like that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Ed?
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, is there water and sewer in this area now, or is that up to the developer to install that?
On which particular part, Ed, are you thinking?
Well, where we're running this street all the way from Tabor, I think, all the way to Newberry.
I guess there's multiple answers to your question. The first paving district, there's already water and sewer there.
Okay,
The gap, which was a redevelopment, Francis, that the developer is responsible for. There's some sanitary running across there right now, just on the north side of the proposed Francis. So they'll be responsible with the water for their infrastructure. The second paving district we just talked about, there's just storm sewer. There's no sanitary or water. So that will have to come in as they develop that out. Then they need connections. But there's water and sewer in Devco, and they'll be coming from the west with the redevelopment. The third paving district, there's no water and sewer there at all. There's water on Newberry. There's sewer running north, east, and west that they'll have to connect into in the future. So that makes sense to your question.
so will the placement of the street have any bearing on the location of the future water and sewer lines then?
Probably not right now. Crossings maybe not the placement of the street, but the
Okay.
potential crossings, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Calling the question on item number 11, please. Excuse me, item number 11 is passed. Word over here again. Okay, item number 12. Third reading and action on ordinance number 4200 to rezone certain land from an R3 dwelling district to a B2 highway commercial district on property located at 603 East 5th Street and 503 North Cottonwood Street. Lane, the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 4200. An ordinance of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, rezoning certain lands described as Lot 5, Block 110, original town of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, from an R3 dwelling district to a B2 highway commercial district, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4200 to rezone certain land from an R3 dwelling district to a B2 highway commercial district located at 603 East 5th Street and 503 North Cottonwood Street on final reading.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols. Any discussion on item number 12? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 12, please. Item number 12 is passed. Item number 13, second reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4195, annexing Lot 1 Otter Second Subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits. Lane, the ordinance, please.
Ordinance number 4195, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to include within the corporate limits of the city of North Platte certain lands described as Lot 1 Otter Second Subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Thank you.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4195, annexing Lot 1 Otter Second Subdivision into the city of North Platte corporate limits on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. Any discussion on item number 13? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 13, please. Item number 13 is passed. Item number 14, second reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4196, annexing Lot 2, Otter First Subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits. Lane?
Ordinance number 4196. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to include within the corporate limits of the city of North Platte certain lands described as Lot 2, Otter First Subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4196, annexing Lot 2, Otter First Subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Garrick. Any discussion on item number 14? Seeing none, calling the question on item 14, please. Item 14 is passed. Item 15, second reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4197, annexing Lot 1, Major's Three Brothers Administrative Subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits. Lane?
Ordinance number 4197, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to include within the corporate limits of the city of North Platte certain lands described as Lot 1, Major's Three Brothers Administrative Subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4197, annexing Lot 1, Major's Three Brothers Administrative Subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Reeker. Any discussion on item 15, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Lucas?
Yeah, a quick procedural question really ties to all these. When we adopt annexation of commercial property, how does the implementation of sales tax work? Does the business owner get a notice, or is there some type of procedure so 6 months from now they don't owe us a bunch of taxes?
I know by law we have to alert the state and send the state all the things. I'm not sure if the state then alerts the business owner. Is that how it works, Andy? So the state then notifies them.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments on item number 15? Seeing none, calling the question on item 15, please. Item number 15 is passed. Item number 16, second reading and action to adopt ordinance number 4198, annexing Block 1, Glenfield's third subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits. Lane?
Ordinance number 4198, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of North Platte, Lincoln County, Nebraska, to include within the corporate limits of the city of North Platte certain lands described as Block 1, Glenfield's third subdivision, Lincoln County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the effective date and publication thereof.
I move to adopt ordinance number 4198, annexing Block 1, Glenfield's third subdivision into the City of North Platte corporate limits on second reading.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols. Any discussion on item 16? Seeing none, calling the question on item 16, please. Item 16 is passed. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Now we're going to,
Pay the claims, please.
well, okay, that's fine. We're gonna have, well, okay. So, hold on, everybody. All right. Okay. Okay. Item number 17, approve the claims.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pay the claims.
Second.
Motion by Reeker, second by Vols to pay the claims. Calling the question on paying the claims. Oh, I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question on the general section, professional financy. I suppose that's financial advisors.
Yes. That is part of our 401k. That's some of our costs with the 401k.
Okay, thank you. And then under the EEA North Platte Mall LLC, $43,635.50.
That is our monthly portion of the EA that goes to them once they have qualified expenses.
Apparently we haven't qualified enough expenses to fix the parking lot. There's been nothing done there, absolutely nothing. And that was our agreement, and I don't remember when we signed off on this, probably 3 months ago now. And I believe we were told they were gonna get right after it. I guess maybe we didn't get right after it determined what that means.
Yeah, they'll have a letter very shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And then, under police, family skill buildings services, what is that?
That was that amount back at budget time when they came to us asking for that preventative help, and that goes to the services through the county in collaboration with the county. The county also did $10,000 to that because the state funding, some of that disappeared.
So it's kind of a counseling program? Is that what it is?
It's kind of a diversion program. I believe Chief could probably give a little bit better. No, we talked about it at budget time. They did the presentation.
Family Skill Building runs that diversion program, so it's a juvenile diversion program that keeps those kids out of the court system, hopefully, if they successfully complete it.
All right.
But they were underfunded, and the county attorney, they had come to the county, and the county attorney supports the program and asked if we would consider a $10,000 pay if she could give the county to try to support that program so it doesn't go away. They assess some fees to the families, but they're afraid if they get them too high, the families won't participate.
So this is a program that's been in effect for a while.
It has been, but it's lost some of its grant funding.
What kind of results have you seen from the program?
I just asked that the other day, but I want to say 200 and some through the year, but there really aren't a lot of options. It's either go to probation, go through court, go through probation, or you go through the diversion program. And some families will say it's cheaper to go to court. I'm not going to pay the fees, but in reality, that's not really the case. We're appointing attorneys and things of that nature. It's cheaper for the family, but for the rest of us, it's really not. So, my opinion, $10,000 is pretty good use of our money.
So in your estimation, does this, what's the rate of recidivism? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I think Sergeant Johnson spoke to that a little bit. I don't know that we know what the rate of recidivism is, because then the next time it's probably in adult court. So, but I don't think they let them go through the diversion program twice. So you get one shot at that. If you don't complete it or you commit another crime, then you're likely to end up in court anyway.
Is there any way of keeping track of that? I mean, I'm not opposed to these programs, but if they aren't working, then it doesn't make a lot of sense to throw money at it.
They probably know. I could probably get it, but I don't know.
I'd kind of like to know, actually.
I'll ask Sarah Johnson. I'm sure she has it.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
And then, under public services, U.S. Bank Corp equipment for $90,000.
That's one of our lease payments on equipment for garbage trucks that were purchased a couple
Okay,
years ago.
all right, I remember. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Calling the question on paying the claims. Item number 17 is passed. We'll now move back to item number 2. To do that, we will officially adjourn as the City Council of North Platte, and we will reconvene. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor? At our last meeting, I requested how much the payout was going to be on the bond for the new recreation center. Did you get any numbers on that?
We don't, because we haven't done any more bonds, so we can't really tell you accurately. As soon as we do the big tranche of bonds, we can give you a pretty close number.
Okay, all right,
So,
thank you.
and that could occur anywhere in the second mark. could occur anywhere in the next 60 days. Okay. You know, when we do those bonds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hi,
We're
Mark.
gonna adjourn. I have an agenda request.
We're going to go back to it at the end, so we won't
Okay.
miss you. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I should have mentioned that, so. Okay, so we have adjourned the city council meeting. We are reconvening as the Board of Equalization. Mr. Attorney, would you say just a little bit about our duties as the Board of Equalization?
Certainly. So the Board of Equalization you're sitting as a separate board at this time, and your responsibilities here to look at some of the financing options available to the city as part of these particular matters are districts, improvement districts that were created. So I think is that sufficient where you're looking at how best to consider financing these arrangements for the city.
Thank you. Okay, moving back to agenda item number 2, as the Board of Equalization, approve assessment schedule for paving district number 836 Iron Trail Drive from Twin Rivers Road thence west to Business Park Drive. Also, Business Park Drive from State Farm Road thence north approximately 1,760.77 feet. As usual, we need a motion to proceed.
Move to approve the assessment schedule for paving district number 836.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by McNew. Okay. This is something that we don't do very often here. So, Lane, Brent, who would like to talk through this? Brent appears to be moving, so we'll let him do it. Okay. Okay.
I'll cover the part in Lane. If there's things that you want to jump in, feel free to. On the paving district, what I presented to you, I thought maybe I'd cover all 3 districts, the thought process and what we're doing from the engineering cost side. What we do is, there's some exceptions, but generally most of the time what we do is we take the total cost. One side is the cost to the property, it's the benefit, and those numbers are the same. So we take the total cost, figure out the frontage, the linear footage of the property, and divide the cost by the linear footage. So then we develop a cost per front foot, and that's what we do for water, sewer, paving. There are some parts that we do, like the intersection of a street. Typically, what we do is we assign that to the city, because if you look at a front, like in a corner, who gets the intersection? It doesn't really fit the corner. So the typical policy, what we've had is the city pays for the intersection. And then the same thing on double frontage with water and sewer. If you're a corner lot on the water and sewer, we have a 150 foot is what's assumed is assessed to that property. And then, so if you're on a corner, the first 150, you don't get double assessed on the corner for the first 150 feet. But if you're a really big lot, it can be split up. The assessment continues. So I thought I'd just provide that as a big picture of how we do the assessment schedule. And then you have the results in front of you in your packet of taking the front footage, dividing it by the cost to get a cost per foot.
Thank you. Questions for Brent before he sits down? We can always call him back, but Rod, go ahead.
I was looking through all this and I'm hoping you can explain to me. I noticed on a lot of the other ones too, we have like TC engineering, design and engineering of 122, and then down below 11% engineering fee. How does that work?
What we had on that one, there was a TC engineering did the design, and then the city did the construction phase services. And that would include some of the other costs that we have in there with like concrete testing.
So the
things like
11,
that.
11% engineering fee would be paying the city's
Correct.
employees back for
That's
the work.
right. That's
Okay.
right.
Okay. And then the 3.5% advertising and interest. Is that for advertising for bids?
Correct. We kind of lumped 2 things together. We have advertising for bids, and also for, all of the things that we have to do with the
Okay.
Board of Equalization. But the interest would be the that we have for the warrants That's the interim interest. As we pay the bills, like the paving, water, sewer districts, those were last construction season. And so those were paid May, June, July, but they're sitting on warrants right now.
Okay.
And so that's what we've used historically is it's 3.5% to
Okay.
account for those costs.
And the ATC testing, is that ground testing?
That would be density testing, correct?
Okay.
Yep, soil
Okay.
testing, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Ed.
So Brent, like TC Engineering, does TC work off of a percentage of the cost of the project, or how does that be determined?
Typically, it's usually an engineer's estimate of the cost prior to bidding.
And what is that percentage?
It varies a little bit. I'd have to look at each one of these, but typically it's probably 6 to 10% depending on what it is and how complex the project is. I mean, I'd say a range if that makes more sense. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yes.
Go ahead, Ty.
Can we just do a double check with Mr. Pearson that the linear footage works well for what they're doing versus looking at square footage of lots out there? Just, not questioning the way the city's doing it, but it never hurts to check with the major land owner representative here.
I just want to give a little overview. This is Twin Rivers Business Park that we're talking about, and this has been a partnership between the city and the Chamber Development Corporation, previously known as DevCo. You know, that was our development arm and the development arm of the city. So it's been a true partnership. But the reason we have a business park is that we are considered a certified economic development community. And we have to go through a process every 5 years to get that certification. One of the requirements is to get potential business leads for the community from industry, business. They want to deal with a community-owned business park. They don't want to deal with 75 different property owners out there in any one community. So by having a business park to start with, it not only enhances our ability to draw a business industry here, but also checks the box that we get a lot of potential leads. A lot of those leads have wound up in North Platte as a result of having a business park. This park has been there for over 20 years. We basically ran out of development sites from the infrastructure because we've aggressively pursued that. We've had like 13 new buildings, 12 new buildings built in the last 5 years out there. So we're running out of development sites, so the time came when we had to put in additional street, sewer, water. And in my previous development practices before I came to North Platte, one of the things that I was very familiar with was petitioning the city to have improvement districts to put infrastructure in. Number one, it's a really good development practice because you don't kill a developer up front with all the upfront costs. It allows you, and then it's a good embracement for the city to have these kind of practices as well, because it allows time for that development to mature, and you don't have to pay for all the infrastructure up front. You can pay for it over time. So in petitioning the city, I've expressed from day one, probably a little over a year ago to now, I'd like for like a 20-year improvement district bond, which the state statute allows for street, sewer, water. It gives us the opportunity to get this developed because all the raw land out there gets assessed to the Chamber Development Corporation as the owner of the property up until the time that we can sell those parcels. It also impacts some of the other developments that occurred out there that needed this development to also occur. But getting back to Ty's question, the per linear foot basis is a kind of a standard practice when you on improvement districts, and that way you're paying for that front footage assessment on both sides. So anybody that's impacted by that development out there, and they do have the choice in a district to pay it off up front. We're dealing with a development right now that we just secured, thanks to the fact that we have the new infrastructure in there. They bought 5 acres they're going to probably choose to pay it all off up front. That's a developer's prerogative. But most developments need that additional time to make their business successful. And it certainly buys us more time that we're not having to tap into all our other resources to pay for the assessments. And it's a motivating factor too to go get your whole project developed. But if we run out of land out there as a business park, we're going to have to seek another business park, which is a good thing to have. You just look at all the different development actions you took tonight. That's a sign of a good, healthy, growing community. And the length of your agenda and the length of your meetings is, I always equate back to the success of a community. So I can tell you 10 years ago that agenda was pretty short and the meetings were pretty short. But this tells you right now how much action is going on in the community, and you've embraced that and you made the community successful. And this is just another partnership. We need to have that partnership with the city to do this, to help us continue that momentum going forward. And it's gonna help us continue to get new business leads. When we get those leads, we're not always gonna fit the bill for whoever's looking at what. We pass that on to as many other development sites as we can get in North Platte, but we would have never got those inquiries if we didn't have a community-owned business park. So our whole motive in this whole thing is just to break even, financially survive as a development corporation, but it's also what we should be doing as a development arm of the city. We should be moving developments like this forward and having that availability in the community. So sorry for the long answer. I thought I'd get it all out of the way at once.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. We reserve the right to call you back. So. Since this is something that the council does not do necessarily on a regular basis, the city folks came up with a kind of a list of evaluation criteria for assessment districts, and they're in front of the council here. These are just by no means hard and fast rules. They're just things to think about. And number one is financial risk of the project to the city. What is the project viability? Land evaluation. Will the assessment be worth more than the property post-improvement? Number three is the infrastructure backbone type of infrastructure or ancillary. So, for example, Francis Street that we discussed lengthily is definitely an infrastructure backbone type rather than perhaps a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood might be considered more ancillary in some cases. Does it help fill a master plan? Number four, type of development. Is it industrial jobs, commercial, or residential? Number five, who is the developer or ownership? Is it a private concern? Is it DevCo? Is it a nonprofit or some other affiliation? Number six, is it financed through tax increment financing or part of a redevelopment agreement? Number seven, impact to the community. So something that's going to bring a lot of jobs or ease traffic or something like that versus not. And number eight, city's current financial picture, including economy, bond indebtedness, et cetera, et cetera. So these, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's many of the important things for the council to consider when setting these amounts. What we're ultimately doing here is deciding how long, A, to do the district, B, how long will we allow up to 20 years the district to be repaid, and then what is the interest rate of those payments. And there are some statute limitations on the interest rate based on state statutes. The city staff is proposing that we go of an interest rate that is 2% above whatever the bond it takes to finance the amount is. So in today's terms, that would likely be 6.5% or slightly less is what that would amount to for an interest rate.
Plus the two.
Or that would include the two. Okay. It could be different based on the bond market. It's been quite volatile lately, but it's likely to be in that vicinity. Anything to add, Ling?
No, we kind of played with some different ideas as far as what the interest rate should be. For a long time, the city's just had a 9%, which, you know, that may have been set years ago when interest rates were kind of ran higher as a rule. We also could look at, you know, the prime rate, whatever the prime is, plus a couple percent or something too. But we just looked at different methods, and so just to give you some ideas, so you have some different things to play with. I think it should just be something that we set a standard of whatever it is, whether it's a couple percent above whatever we can bond the project out of, which is always a moving target until you actually sell the bonds. And of course, the primary can also be a kind of a moving target, and or you just set a rate and leave it at that. But like I said, the 9% that they've used in the past that was set years ago is probably a little high, because that's probably maybe even higher than what the normal market rates would be.
Questions or comments? Ed, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. What's our total bonded indebtedness right now?
Well, there's several categories of bonds, but Don, do you have a rough estimate here?
So these are estimates, Ed. I apologize. I don't have that in front of me. General obligation, we would be approximately 20 million on that piece. We issued 9.8 million for municipal improvement bonds for the first tranche on the rec center. Those have been issued. And then the utility side, oh goodness, I don't have that number off the top of my head. But we actually are down to, well, actually, I believe it's close to 3 million, because we only have outstanding sewer bonds currently. Electric and water bonds actually just paid off. So we're right about 3 million outstanding in sewer for utilities.
So if my math is anywhere close to right, we're about 32 million.
Yes, approximately.
And how much more do we have to get for the rec center?
Approximately 30 million.
So we're going to be at somewhere around $60+ million of bond and indebtedness before the rec center is done.
Yeah. Yes, 60 to maybe even a little higher than that, depending.
Well, I like this method of building streets, quite frankly, because the property owner's tax money goes to the government and not back to the contractor. And I personally like this a lot better than using TIF money to pay for the infrastructure, because that way the tax money comes right back to the taxing entities. How many total dollars are we looking at adding to our bonded indebtedness with these projects?
When you say these projects, you're talking about the iron, this one, right? We were just discussing.
That's
It's
correct.
about 2 million, right, Brent? Yeah, just a hair under 2 million.
So we're going to be somewhere in that 65, 67 million total bonded indebtedness.
So for the projects all inclusive would be just about 2.5 million. The DevCo portion is going to be right about 2. So we would be issuing the total as far as the actual bonds that would get issued, and DevCo's portion would be a significant piece of that, but there would be a little bit more than the DevCo piece for the bond.
Do you anticipate the need to bond any future projects besides what we have now?
It's highly likely, yes.
Any idea what kind of monies we're looking at?
Well, if we consider districting some small portion of this, you kind of have the estimates on there. There's approximately 4 million in of which we wouldn't need to do the whole thing. We would just do 2 million of that. So you could end up approximately 2 million on that piece that we discussed earlier.
There's also the wastewater treatment plant, the industrial wastewater treatment plant.
So we had a $20 million grant for that, right?
Correct.
And how much over that are we going to have to spend?
That's a good question. It's been a moving target. Possibly another 40.
40? Whew. So we're going to be well over $100 million.
We'll be right in that range.
That's a lot of money.
So based on these questions, I think we probably need to have a work session on how bonding works for municipalities. Because these bonds fall into different, in different classifications. They're paid for in different ways by what's attested. So when you say we're going to be $100 million in debt, yes, or roughly that's accurate, or bonds have been sold that amount. But they have guaranteed sources of revenue. So it's not like somebody went out and borrowed $100 million.
Right.
So let's not portray it that way. Let's portray it for what it really is.
And I'm not intended to do
Yeah,
that.
I know. I'm just trying to be clear about it. So, but we will have a work session in the near future on bonds because, quite frankly, I've got a lot of education on bonds here just recently, and I think it would be something valuable to share because it's a very complex world, and how it's guaranteed and the things that we can do as a city. I think it's important that you guys understand that. So. Okay, other questions or comments? Go ahead, Ty.
Sorry, Pete, go ahead, please.
I was just going to come back to Dawn real quick. You know, two of the big questions that were, if we approve these projects, that we're going to decide the 2% over the bond rate at a 20-year payback. Just wondering your comfort level with those two decisions on that.
I think that's a fair point to be, Pete. Hopefully that's benefiting our developer, but also taking care of meeting the city's needs to finance those bonds that are issued for those improvements. I think, you know, my only thought was the fact that our bonds, once we issue those, that's a little bit of a moving target. So if council desires a specific, like Lane mentioned, we did discuss a little bit about using prime, but that can be a moving target as well. So I think if we can establish something we're comfortable with and can be consistent, it would be easier to administer moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense to have 2% over the bond rate. And obviously, I'm perfectly fine with a 20-year payback on this.
With instead of just setting a straight interest rate and having it tied to something, then we'll better mirror whatever's going on in the economic environment at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heck, we could have 14% interest rates a year from now. Who knows?
Don't say that.
Okay, sorry. I take that.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Lucas,
go ahead, please. Try avoid 14% interest rates. Okay.
You know, just a few thoughts on this whole bonding thing. I think looking at these in that 10 to 20 year segment really makes sense. I'm supportive of 20 on this because of who the developer is, the purpose of it, the community aspects of it. You know, if I look at the past practice, which we haven't done very many of them, if you're doing them for real short and at a higher interest rate, well, the only folks that are going to do that are going to be higher risk projects. And so by doing this, I think you're really being collaborative. And of course, today's cost structure is totally different. So the last time we've done any of these, the cost for infrastructure is triple or double at least what it was at that point. So I think it makes sense for us to migrate that way. I've been asked if people feel that this competes with the commercial banking market system. My peers may not all agree with me on this. I don't really think it does because tying back to your point, Ed, a little bit is on all of these, we're using TIF and the districts. So it's not really an either or. And in today's cost matrix, it's probably a pipe dream to think that you're not trying to throw the kitchen sink at these developments. I hope we get back to a economics where you're maybe doing one or the other. I think that's a great goal to give as a community. Hopefully the economics move there. But in today's world, everything we're talking about has both. And so you're trying to use these financing tools, but I don't really feel like these districts compete with financing. First of all, nobody's responsible for the financing on these. It's strictly tied to the land. So now the owner wants to protect their land. They don't want to not pay their assessments and have somebody take them away because they dirtied the title by not paying their taxes and their assessments. But these aren't loans that anybody's responsible for. They're often going to get paid by the purchaser of the lots in a development. And what's weird is, and I've seen this over and over again, let's say a commercial lot's $100,000 and an assessment's $50,000.
people look at that differently than paying 150,000 for a lot. It's weird. It doesn't make sense, but people who buy property, especially from out of our community, are used to taking on these assessments because they kind of see them like tap fees for infrastructure. And I know we have some connection fees too, but they're used to paying heavy tap fees. I mean, if they're in Colorado today, they're paying thousands of dollars to tap infrastructure. So outsiders come in and I think they're kind of used to that. So I'm in full support of that. I think the 2% is a really nice balance over the bonding cost. The problem is if you use the prime rate, you're taking long-term debt and tying it to short-term interest rates. And so I wouldn't be as in favor of that. Other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor,
ahead.
I gotta recollect my thoughts here now. Well, if somebody else has a question, maybe mine will come
Okay.
back.
Mayor, if I just
Jim, go
may
ahead.
ask, when they do this bond, it's not a variable rate, it's a fixed rate. When you issue the bond, it's a fixed rate throughout the 20 years. We don't have to worry about a variable rate coming in. Okay,
That's correct, yeah.
okay, all right, thank you.
I got it.
Okay. Hold on, point of clarification. In some cases, it's advantageous to refinance bonds at a lower rate, and so that may occur over the course of the bond's life, but that would be a decision we would have. Somebody wouldn't do it to us. So anyway, go ahead, Ed, sorry.
Thank you. I still have it. So the 2%, and I'm just asking a question. What this is to recover the city's expenses, correct?
Yes.
Is that number high or is it low? In other words, can we do it for less? In other words, what are our true costs?
Well, remember, you'd have to try to predict that true cost over 20 years.
But if it's a percentage, it should follow the rate of inflation.
Right, but your cost is going to increase over 20 years based on salaries and things like that. So Lane and Dawn did some analysis around what is a reasonable rate, and that's how they landed on 20%. So I'll ask Lane to kind of comment on it.
And then part of it depends on the size of the project. You know, if it's a smaller project, that, you know, there's a lot of accounting work and different things, the staff time that goes into it. And so it kind of varies on the size of the project. We looked at a number of different projects and just thought that 2% on most projects is going to cover it. You know, if you have a bigger project, that might be a little more than the cost, but if it's a smaller project, that might not be quite as much, but it's just kind of an average because there's a lot of costs, you know, and there's things that you can't always, as Gary mentioned, if some people come in and they want to pay that off right away instead of going to 20 years, well, that cuts down the length of the bonds. And so it's, you know, there's just a lot of variables there, but we thought 2% was a fair amount. It's still, that's probably still a couple percent less than what the bank rate would be if they were to borrow it themselves, but it's a little bit more than our bond rate. So it's kind of a happy medium, if you will.
Well, I was just thinking on this amount of money, you know, if it doesn't cost, I don't want to short the city for sure. But on the other side of the coin, if we can reduce some of the cost to the developer because it doesn't cost us as much as we're charging them, then I would definitely be in favor of that.
I think Gary would, you know, with his experience in Sydney, it's a fair amount that covers the cost of the city, but it also is advantageous to most developers because it's less than what they can borrow in most cases.
Okay.
Can I add a comment on that?
Go ahead, yeah.
Don't think these don't have credit risk. They do. So for example, the one that's out on Francis, this one is lower because there's buildings already there. And so if I have a building today and I get assessed, I'm going to pay my assessment because I don't want anybody to take my building.
Right.
But on the bare lots, there's risk. There's a chance that the city will never recover those assessment dollars. They'll get foreclosed out at some point, and the city's going to have to be deciding at that point if they want to bid on them, and then the bids would probably dictate the recovery of that assessment. So if we had a lot of this going on, you would probably talk about, should we take that 2% and put it in a credit loss reserve to where if we take a hit on one, then we've in essence had a credit spread from others to help offset that credit risk. I would hope that we have a good understanding. You know, you hope everything happens the way they've planned, but you could have situations where you could have very little recovery on something that doesn't have a lot of buildings already with it. So we have to be pretty comfortable that the building's going to happen to support those assessments. And so The 2% in a credit spread world would be pretty low.
Okay.
Because like right now, the market for, if they do these in the eastern part of the state where they do SIDs, where they do improvement districts, that they form their own municipal entity. And I think the market on those today is 8 or 9%. So they're probably getting a 2 or 3 point advantage. Yeah, I agree with Lane, they're getting a couple point advantage over maybe the banking market, but the banking market would be developer responsibility for loans, normal payback, all that. The SID world would even be another point or two higher. So there is a nice financing advantage here for them. So
Okay.
I think it's fair, but it is a nice way, if the city was ever trying to do more to supplement a project, interest rate would be a way to do it. But out there, we do already have a number of these lots purchased and building and developed and all that.
I'm not worried about them not filling up.
Yeah, yeah, this is a really good place
Today's
for this.
environment.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna happen.
I do too.
Okay, other comments or questions on item number 2? Okay. Seeing none,
So, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, have we decided on what we're gonna use for our baseline for the interest rate?
the recommendation was 2% above the bond, which would be approximately 6.5%, be a little less probably.
2% over the bond?
Yeah, 2% over the bond rate, based on the numbers from this week.
Okay.
Okay. Could be a little bit different by the time we get all the paperwork done, but it'd be
Thanks
very
for the
close to that area.
clarification.
And a 20-year repayment, if I understood you right, Pete?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Everybody clear? Do we need to make that part of the motion?
It wasn't,
It was not.
but I would move to amend the motion, I guess,
Okay.
to make the interest rate at 2% above bond rate.
The
for
city's
particular,
bond,
the city's bond rate for the particular project, and to have this at a 20-year payback period.
Second.
Motion by Vols, second by Dye, for a 20-year payback period and 2% above the city's bond rate for these bonds. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, calling the question on the amendment. Amendment is passed. Back to the original question as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 2 as amended. Aye, you gotta vote.
My button's working slow.
Sorry. Item number 2 is passed as amended. Thank you, everyone. Item number 3, we are the Board of Equalization again. Approve assessment schedule for Water Extension District number 267 at the intersection of Twin Rivers Road and Iron Trail Drive, thence west approximately 1,021.25 feet to the intersection of Business Park Drive, also Business Park Drive from State Farm Road, thence north approximately 1,760.77 feet.
I move to approve the assessment schedule for Water Extension District number 267 to include a 2% interest rate over the city's bond rate and a 20-year payback.
Second.
Motion by Vols, second by Garrick, including a 2% above the city's bond rate as interest rate and a 20-year payback in the motion. Okay, discussion on the motion. Item number 3. Obviously, this is highly similar to the last one. We're talking about water instead of paving here. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 3 as motioned. Item number 3 is passed as motion. Thank you, everyone. Item number 4, Board of Equalization for the last time tonight. Approve assessment schedule for sanitary sewer connection district number 21, beginning at the northeast corner of Lot 1 of Iron Trail 3rd Administrative Subdivision, then continuing west parallel to the north lot lines of Lot 1 of Iron Trail 3rd Administrative Subdivision, lots 3 and 5 of Iron Trail 2nd Subdivision, and the south lot line of part of west half northeast quarter and part of southeast quarter and of 1513-30 to the northwest corner of Lot 3 of Iron Trail Second Subdivision, approximately 2,000 feet, thence south to Business Park Drive, parallel to the east lot line of lots 1 through 3 of Iron Trail Second Subdivision, and the west lot line of lots 4 and 5 of Iron Trail Second Subdivision, approximately 1,760.77 feet.
I move to approve the benefit schedule for sanitary sewer connection district number 21 and include a interest rate of 2% over the city's bond rate and a 20-year payback schedule.
Second.
Motion by Vols, second by Garrick, to include a 2% above the city's bond rate, interest rate, and a 20-year repayment schedule.
I think on this one, it's handled a little bit differently.
Oh,
If
that
Brent
is.
wants to address that.
Sorry. Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
Brent, go ahead.
I should have explained at the beginning, on the paving district and the water district, both of those are assessed on a front footage basis. And the extension district commences immediately. The connection district is a connection fee. So when it's installed, there's no charge until they connect. So the duration and the interest rate wouldn't necessarily apply because it's a connection charge upon a connection to the city. And the reason we did this one differently is the sewer line location was running right against the farm field and Devco. And if you do as an extension, you can't charge ag ground an assessment. So we did it as a connection so that if that ground changes and they want to connect, that they would pay their portion as opposed to not. The city would pay it all if we did it as an extension. So we did it as a connection so that if the neighbor connected, they would pay for the benefit of having it there.
So I'd recommend just an amendment to the motion, just to amend it back to what was presented in the council materials.
Okay, would it be appropriate for me to amend my own motion?
So that's where we get sticky. So I believe if he amends his own motion, withdraws it, and
I would like to withdraw my motion.
I move to approve the benefit schedule for
Hold on,
sanitary.
hold on. Are you okay withdrawing your second?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to approve the benefit schedule for sanitary sewer connection district number 21.
Second.
Motion by Garrick, second by Vols on item number 4. Any further discussion? Excuse
We
me.
have to vote on a withdrawal.
No.
For the question.
Go ahead,
That's
Ty.
okay. Okay, so does that connection fee get set per the schedule, but it doesn't have a interest accrual on it? Is that how that works? Okay, so the city, that's right, in this type of district, the city ends up eating the interest accrual. We're still getting that administrative fee.
Correct.
Percent or whatever.
Yes.
But then we end up eating the interest to make it because it's, okay.
Yeah, there's pros and cons with all of the different district
Right.
mechanisms. And so it's a tool to use with thought, make sure you use the right tool in the right location.
My goal is by my 8th year on the council to understand the difference between a connection district and an extension district. Maybe flashcards.
I hope that word's for you. I just read connection and still interpreted it incorrectly.
I'm going to develop flashcards, but thank you.
Okay, other questions on item number 4? Seeing none, calling the question on item number 4, please. Item number 4 is passed. Thank you, everyone. We will now adjourn the meeting as the Board of Equalization. The meeting is adjourned. However, we have at least 2 folks in the audience who would like to make a public agenda request. So let me read that section. We'll all listen to the public agenda request. We respect our city employees, request any complaints or criticisms of employees not be aired at a public meeting. Concerns about employees should be brought to the attention of the city administrator or the mayor. Individuals in violation will be declared out of order. Mr. Woods?
Name's Mark Woods, 3211 West 9. The city has a $1.4 million grant to go out and clean up titles and get rid of condemned properties and all that. You also buy houses. Well, I have people bring me, possible homes, and I look at them, and I looked at one a while back, 2107 West Second. They told me what they wanted for it, and I said, well, tell the lawyer, I'll take that contingent upon looking inside to see if I can fix what I can see from the outside. Well, turns out the city bought the house for more than my offer. You know, it just doesn't seem right that I'm in direct competition now with the city.
So what's the agenda request item?
The agenda request is that you quit buying and selling homes. I've tried to come up, you won't do what I want you to do, but if you would just quit buying and selling them. I mean, you can clean up the titles, then the owner is more likely to sell it on the open market. And how do you sell them? Are you going to auction them, or?
Yeah, we're going to auction them, but this cannot be a debate, so thank you. We will put it on a future
Okay.
agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Donna Ty, 2320 Cedarberry Road. I would ask that the council please review ordinance 4153 subsection 1 item E number 3 B and C pertaining to RV parking in a residential area.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have a concern in your neighborhood? Is
I
that?
do, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
that's, okay. Thank you. We will take a look at it, okay? And someone will reach out to you about your concern.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other agenda request items? Okay, the meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone.